What Really Happened with your host, Mike Rivero. The history the government hopes you never learn. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
Welcome to our show today. It is Tuesday, December 15th, 2020, halfway through the month here, and we have got a lot to talk about today. I've got a lot of news here, so we're going to try and get through it and get to opening the phone lines just as quickly as we can here. Mike is in our control room, twiddling the dials and keeping us out of trouble, so let's get right on into it. First of all, this is Bill of Rights Day. This is the anniversary. Well, actually, it was a holiday that was set by Franklin Roosevelt to basically celebrate the ratification of the Bill of Rights, which I think it's very important that we all remember that Bill of Rights and teach it to our children, because something tells me that probably very soon it's going to sort of drop out of the school curriculum because they don't want the next generation to know about things like, freedom of speech and freedom of assembly and right to keep and bear arms, the right to privacy, the right against self-incrimination, and all those other goodies that the government seems to find so inconvenient. Okay, we're still seeing the fallout, if you will, from the Supreme Court basically chickening out, to quote Donald Trump, on the Texas lawsuit. And a lot of people have come forward and said, the Supreme Court, actually there was plenty of legal precedent and laws that the Supreme Court to hear the case. And again, the important thing to keep in mind here, to sort of counter the spin we're getting from the Democrats and the corporate media that are out there saying, well, all these cases being dismissed means there's no evidence. They've never actually had a chance to present any evidence at all in any court. They're being blockaded at every single step. Now, Alan Dershowitz is out there saying that the Supreme Court ruling shows that you can't count on the judiciary if you're Team Trump. Unfortunately, sadly, he's correct about that, and we're going to have another example of that a little bit later in the show. And, Dershowitz is making a big point that the three justices that President Trump appointed, Justice See No Evil, Justice Hear No Evil, and Justice Speak No Evil, all voted not to hear the case. They basically stabbed Donald Trump in the back on this particular issue. Now, one of the things that is coming on out, this is an article over in newswithviews.com, and they're basically saying that the Supreme Court may have betrayed the American people. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But they're reminding us all the state legislatures have a higher authority. And we were talking yesterday about this story going on about how some electors were being blocked from entering into where the electors were supposed to vote. Well, the confusion seems to be arising from the fact that some state legislatures appointed their own electors and sent them to vote. And so there was a conflict between the ones appointed by the governors and the ones appointed by the legislatures. The electors appointed by the legislatures should have had legal priority, but they were, in fact, blocked at the door. And so, again, it's getting ugly. It's getting dirty. Now, as we mentioned yesterday, there has been this audit of the Dominion machines in Antrim County, and the court has allowed the audit to be made public. It's going all over the independent media and the internet. Still no mention of it on the corporate media, but basically Trump is out there saying that this audit of the Dominion machines in Antrim County is hard proof of massive election fraud. And, these Dominion voting machines are used all over the country and change the results of what appears to have been a landslide election for Donald Trump. And so they may be proceeding with a case based on that. Of course, it's getting harder and harder to get around this standing issue with all of the courts. I mean, it's ridiculous to say the president of the United States and a candidate in the election does not have standing to bring suit, and yet some of the courts have actually gone down that path here. Now, over in Arizona, State Senator Eddie Farnsworth has announced he is issuing subpoenas to audit the Dominion voting machines used in Maricopa County during the general election. Now, of course, by now, I'm sure these machines are being scoured and reprogrammed and cleaned up to survive an audit, but you know, some of these machines are under orders for sequestration, so we'll see what comes on out. But as far as I'm concerned, the audit report coming out of Antrim County casts doubt on every single Dominion machine that is out there. And on that basis, you know, if I were sitting on the Supreme Court, I would say the election is illegitimate. It's null and void. We can't know, because of all the fraud that went on, who really won. Let's throw it into the House of Representatives. Over in Wisconsin, apparently the Wisconsin State Supreme Court has ruled that the state did not have authority to abandon voter ID requirements based on the voters having or being exposed to COVID-19. And these election officials basically made a bad judgment call. The Wisconsin Supreme Court confirmed it and basically said all the state and local election officials erred when they gave blanket permission, allowing voters to declare themselves homebound and skip the voter ID requirements. And so that was a huge, huge error over there. All righty. Now, apparently, Democratic State Senator Patricia Schrachter, one of Wisconsin's 10 electors, claimed that she was indefinitely confined to her home ahead of the November election. But apparently pictures posted on her own Facebook page show her out and about campaigning and enjoying leisure time. So she lied. She basically just lied about this indefinite confinement here. And it's like they can't stop lying. And I think what it is they don't dare tell the truth even once out of fear we, the people, might learn to tell the difference. So they just lie all the time. So you think, well, this is the way they normally behave here. Now, somebody ran a poll. This is over at Rasmussen Reports, no less. And apparently 36% of voters still think Trump can win through the court challenges. Now, these are probably people not aware that the courts themselves have become corrupted in this process. But it's another reminder that, you know, a large chunk of Americans think this election was rigged, including 30% of Democrats. So, I mean, it's an illegitimate election. Biden is an illegitimate president-elect. And his administration will be illegitimate, and with it, the entire government. I mean, the idea of elections, that we can vote the bastards out, that we can vote ourselves lower taxes, that we can vote ourselves leaders who want to avoid wars that will kill and cripple our children. That is the very foundation of the contract between government and we, the people. And if that contract is broken, then we're living in a dictatorship. And your homework tonight, everybody, is to go back and reread that Declaration of Independence. You know, especially that part that begins, whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it. And I hate to say it, but it feels like we're definitely there. Okay, little bit of good news. This is coming out of outside the election here. Attorney General William Barr is no longer Attorney General. He resigned yesterday after a face-to-face meeting with Donald Trump, who was understandably annoyed that Barr, pardon me, worked to keep the Hunter Biden probe secret for all this time. And a lot of voters, including Democrats, had said, had they known about this, had they known about Hunter Biden's laptop, they would not have voted for Joe Biden. It would have changed the outcome of the election. And, Trump sent him off with the usual politically correct statement. Our relationship has been a very good one. He's done an outstanding job, and Barr's going to spend the holidays with his family. But basically what it comes down to is Barr has been fired. Now, up above, I was talking about the Supreme Court not being on Trump's side, including the 3 justices appointed by Donald Trump here. And apparently yesterday was the last day for Supreme Court rulings this year, and the Supreme Court took no action on Donald Trump's plan to exclude undocumented migrants, illegal aliens, from the census figures used to draw the boundaries for each state's representation in Congress. Now, there is such a mass of illegal immigrants, it is having an effect on districts. It's adding districts to certain states here. It's changing the lines on other districts. It's a corrupting influence. And Trump is correct to say illegal immigrants should not be counted for the delineation of representational districts. And the Supreme Court simply declined to hear the case at all. Okay, now, see where we are here. Interesting little story. Apparently, Joe Biden's office was warned all the way back in 2015 that the Obama State Department believed the Ukrainian gas oligarch whose firm hired Hunter Biden was corrupt, and that some of the evidence supporting that conclusion had been gathered by the U.S. Justice Department. 2015, and they did absolutely nothing about it. This was before Biden declared for the presidency, by the way. So apparently, then U.S. Ambassador Jeffrey Piat in Kiev alerted Biden's top advisors to the concerns about Burisma Holdings founder Mykola Zlochevsky shortly before the vice president visited with Ukrainian officials in December of that year. So the corruption's been going on for a very, very long time. And again, if this had all been public knowledge, Trump would be on his way to his second term. But the Department of Justice and the corporate media hid this from you in order to get you to vote for the candidate they wanted. Now, if that's not election interference, I don't know what is. All righty. Apparently, Senator Johnson was on Hannity Monday night and basically said that Joe Biden has lied to the public about his ties to communist China. And Sean Hannity weighed in and you know, asking if the Biden family is compromised by China, the Ukraine, or Russia. We need an option for all 3. So, you know, again, it's just massively corrupt. It's on a scale equal to that of the Clintons. And, you know, that we can expect more of the same in a Biden administration. The corruption will continue. It will enlarge. It will expand. And ordinary people will ultimately pay the price for it. Now, one of the liberal policies that the incoming Biden administration, barring a miracle, the incoming Biden administration, they're going after the guns. That's definitely what it is. And apparently he wants to take down the National Rifle Association, and he's going to go after the assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. Now, again, there is no legitimate reason to go after what's called sporting rifles. The government has said these are assault rifles. The people who own them and shoot them say they're sporting rifles. They're not good hunting weapons. The caliber is too low. They're not really used in crime because they're too big and too recognizable and too obvious. The reason the government wants these weapons gathered up is they're afraid of us. You know, they understand the reason for the Second Amendment is not target shooting. It is not hunting. It is to hold abusive government in check. And as our government continues to get more and more abusive, they want that safety valve, if you will, removed. And if they get the guns, you know, if you think things are bad now, you know, with mandatory vaccines and masks and constant surveillance, it's definitely going to get worse. Now, Kamala Harris is, you know, totally on board with this. And in her remembrance of yesterday's anniversary of the Sandy Hook hoax, she was again pushing gun control to keep our children safe. Well, Kamala, what about all those children in Iraq and Afghanistan and Syria and Yemen who have been killed by U.S. military adventurism. Don't they count? Shouldn't we worry about their safety? Or is this just another convenient double standard? Now, Lynn Wood, who is a lawyer in support of Donald Trump out there, basically tweeted yesterday that people should stock up on Second Amendment supplies, meaning firearms and ammunition. And already ammunition is getting scarce, even around here with all the hunters. And Lynn Wood's tweets seem to predict coming social unrest over the outcome of the election. And Wood simply said, better to be safe than sorry. And that's absolutely, absolutely true. All Americans should have a weapon. They should train to use it safely and to use it well. Not because I'm hoping people are going to go out and use it, but because awareness that the populace is armed and refuses to surrender their arms may deter the government from more abuses. And we have seen so many abuses already. Now, this is where things are getting really out of control. Up in New York, the New York Police Department stormed the home of a woman and seized 22 guns from her apartment and basically hit her with felony weapons charges totaling 25 years in prison, only to discover that 21 of the 22 guns were fakes that were rented out for commercials and magazines and photo shoots. So basically analysis from the NYPD itself showed that all the weapons were either inoperable or fake. It was basically running a prop house. And they still kicked down her door and said, we're going to take all your guns. Well, a little bit of egg on the face of the New York Police Department yet again. All righty. Getting on to COVID-19, that is definitely heating up with the start of the mass vaccination campaigns. The director of the National Institutes of Health is begging Americans to hit the reset button on their concerns over the COVID-19 vaccine. He's asking people to basically swallow their vaccine skepticism. Just believe as we tell you to believe. Really, would we do anything to harm you? Oh, well, you remember 1976, and the swine flu vaccine? Apparently, Bill Gates is sort of casting himself, if you will, as an unofficial expert on vaccines and vaccination. And it should be remembered that Bill Gates has never gone to medical school. He basically, he owns a computer company. And contrary to popular myth, he didn't even write the first DOS. He simply bought it from somebody else and then remarketed it to IBM on a licensing arrangement here. Now, Anthony Fauci really jumped the shark with this one, saying that Black people should trust the COVID vaccine because an African-American woman helped to make it. Well, Anthony, what's that got to do with the price of tea in China? Okay? I mean, that is really getting on out there to try and get people to take this vaccine. And it is how hard they are pushing this. That really makes me wonder what is really inside this vaccine. We go back to the times when the World Health Organization has been scandalized by giving out free typhus vaccinations that turned out to be sterilizing people. They got caught doing this at least twice in Africa that I know of. Now, the National Health Service over in Great Britain is already being told not to give the COVID vaccine to those with a history of allergic reactions. And basically, apparently 2 NHS workers experienced symptoms following administration of the vaccine. And I can imagine that we're not going to really hear too much about adverse reactions because the goal here is to make money for big pharmaceutical and to get us all to jab that needle in our arm for whatever it is supposed to do. Now, apparently, oh, my goodness, how time flies when you're watching the end of the world. We got to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to the show here. And again, a friendly reminder that Republic Broadcasting Network is in the middle of a perpetual fundraiser. We always need to upgrade and modernize and replace old worn out equipment, as this last break just demonstrated. And it is the Christmas season here, and we've all been good boys and girls over at Republic Broadcasting Network, depending on who you ask, of course. So now's the time to stick a little Christmas gift in an envelope. And once again, the postal address is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can make a credit or debit card donation is 800-724-2719, extension 3. And those of you who donate, I'll put in a good word with Santa to make sure that you're on the nice list for this holiday season here. All righty, getting on back to the COVID-19. There is so much pressure to get everybody to take the shot, and they're trying to work around all the laws and treaties and principles saying that you can't be forced to undergo any kind of medical treatment without your informed consent. So they're trying to find ways to coerce your consent. This is really what worries me about what's really in this shot here. Over in Maryland, there's a politician, John Delaney. He's a Democrat, and he is out there pushing for the idea that nobody will get a stimulus check from the coming stimulus bill unless they get the vaccine for COVID-19. So basically what he's doing is he's dangling a check in front of you and says, we'll give you back some of your tax dollars as a reward if you get the needle in your arm. And already there's concern about the fact that this vaccine being rushed will cause all kinds of harm. And we know in the past there have been vaccines that have triggered all kinds of autoimmune diseases. One of the doctors I talked to thinks that what I dealt with this last year was an adverse vaccine reaction. And he says these things can take years to show up here. So apparently Yale basically came out with, you'll pardon the expression, a study that says any autoimmune diseases that surface after the vaccine are actually being caused by coronavirus and not the vaccine, so you shouldn't worry. Kind of reminds me of that story the other day where CNN said, don't worry if you see people dying a day or two after they get the vaccine shot. They were going to die anyways, nothing to worry about here. Okay. Now, apparently, nursing home residents are going to start getting their vaccinations this week, and Dr. Fauci predicts healthy Americans with no underlying conditions will start getting their shots possibly as early as March of next year, and they're going to be receiving Pfizer's jab. Well, that's going to be time to see about adverse reactions, and again, don't expect the corporate media to say anything about it. And already YouTube is deleting any videos that talk about adverse vaccine reactions, that talk about, doubt about the safety and efficacy of vaccines, especially COVID-19. They are pushing this as hard as they push Joe Biden, really. And to just show you how Orwellian this situation is going to get, over at Global Research, they published an excerpt from a Scientific American article from just about a year ago. And it was written by, basically it's a reference to Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s talking about a digital vaccine passport for children. And what they're talking about is a tattoo on the children, on everybody, I guess, in invisible ink that would only show up under an ultraviolet light and basically have a record of your vaccinations. For immediate inspection. Well, if they do that, then we don't need those little cards, do we here? Now, there's another study that was done. This is out of Zero Hedge here. And we have been hearing all year long about the reason for the masks is to flatten the curve because the medical system is going to be overwhelmed and just totally saturated. But apparently, according to federal government data, hospitals nationwide have lots of space left to deal with both routine medical issues and the COVID-19 patients. this fear-mongering about overwhelmed medical systems, it was just another hoax. Even the federal government's numbers are saying it was never really an issue. So, again, propaganda here. And here is another form of coercion to get the vaccine, again, from Zero Hedge. Apparently, hotels are now considering joining airlines in considering, mandating that all guests have proof of COVID vaccination before they're allowed to stay in the hotel. Now, several airlines are already announcing plans to make the shot a compulsory condition of flying. And so they're basically adopting this no vaccine, no service policy. Well, I predict a booming black market in counterfeit vaccination cards. It'll be out there somewhere on the dark web, I am sure. All righty. Now, actually last week, there was this sort of a kerfuffle where the story was circulating. It came out of the New York Times about how Donald Trump and the White House staff were going to get their vaccine shots ahead of everybody else. And then the White House issued a statement saying no, that they would get them in the normal rotation when it was their proper turn here. To impress children, about how serious COVID-19 is and how they've got to wear the masks and get the shot. And the commercial basically showed Santa Claus wheeled into the hospital on the verge of dying from COVID-19. Needless to say, the children did not react very well to that at all. Apparently there's been a huge outcry that it was in extraordinarily poor taste, especially since Anthony Fauci has already told us that Santa Claus is immune from COVID-19, so we shouldn't worry about that here. Okay, over in Washington State, there's a town called Mossy Rock, and apparently they, as an entire community, are openly defying Governor Inslee's latest set of COVID-19 restrictions. So the entire town united to basically defy the dictator, and they're basically saying our consent is withdrawn. That's something that we need to sort of keep in mind here. All righty, over in New Jersey, Ian Smith is the co-owner of Atlas Gym in Belmar, New Jersey. And he made headlines by opening his gym in defiance of Governor Murphy's mandates. And which restricted the number of people allowed in gyms, compel people to wear masks. Now, when you're working out, lifting weights, pedaling the bike, that mask really gets in the way of your breathing, which you need to do a lot of when you're exerting yourself here. And apparently, the state of New Jersey is fining the gym $15,497.76 per day for every day they're in operation. I'm not sure where they got that particular number, but right now the fines are totaling over $1.2 million. Okay, here's another article. This one is out of the New York Times. The New York Times. Here's why vaccinated people still need to wear the mask. So think about that for a minute. If you get the vaccine, they still want you to wear the mask. And the reason for that is Pfizer and Moderna are coming out and admitting that the vaccine is only going to protect you from the more serious symptoms of COVID-19, but it doesn't actually stop you from spreading it or contracting it if you're exposed to it again. Well, I'm sorry, but then that's not a very good vaccine, is it? And there's a lot of people thinking if they get the vaccine, one possible benefit is they can take these stupid masks and throw them in the trash. No, not going to be true. Down in Australia, and I love the Australian sense of humor, a member of Parliament did an experiment to expose the defects in the government's COVID-19 tests. He ran the tests on a glass of Coca-Cola, and it tested positive for COVID-19. And of course, everybody's out there saying, well, they didn't follow the test properly. And it's a joke. This is just a gigantic joke being played on all of us. Okay. Here's to the international news here. Ankara and Azerbaijan have decided to become buddies, at least long enough to have a military victory over Armenia in Nagorno-Karabakh. And the outcome is a huge geopolitical shift in Turkey's favor. Turkey's power in the region is definitely growing, which means they'll soon be on Israel's does not get a Hanukkah card list. Apparently, Turkey is again cutting water to northeast Syria amid increased Turkish attacks on Syrians' defense force positions. It's still ugly over there. Apparently, Russian army experts, are reporting there has been a breach in the ceasefire in Nagorno-Karabakh. Apparently, there was an attack by Azerbaijani forces at a military base in Nagorno-Karabakh. This was reported in the German press agency on Saturday, citing local officials. So the ceasefire has apparently fallen apart yet again. Now, over in Ethiopia, there was this massacre starting on November 9th, where people were just being slaughtered in this single Ethiopian town. And they were attacked with machetes, knives, strangled with ropes. The bodies were left out in the sun and really began to stink up the place here. But there is a concern that this is the beginning of a much larger operation relative to the Tigray region. Okay. Now, over in Belarus, they are starting to lock up anti-Lukashenko protesters en masse. And I'm mentioning this because the way things are going, we may see that happen here in the United States of America, where they start locking up anti-Biden protesters or anti-vote fraud protesters or anti-vaccine protesters. Because they pretty much demolished that Bill of Rights. You know, and they're definitely after the Second Amendment. They've completely shredded the Fourth Amendment, and they want to go after that First Amendment. They've been chipping away at it under the guise of hate speech. And, freedom of speech didn't mean you could say this. Freedom of speech, to me, is an absolute, because when you read that Bill of Rights, there are no qualifiers in it. It is an absolute. You have a right to say or print or write anything you want. It may be idiocy, and other people have an equal right under the First Amendment to speak or write or print. Yes, you were being an idiot when you said that. That's how dialogue happens, and dialogue is essential to the functioning of a constitutional republic. Anyway. Apparently, some new documents have surfaced showing how the British government created, funded, managed the regime change protests in Lebanon. So they're out there playing these games of overthrowing other governments around the world. And whether that's for the globalists or economic advantage, we really don't know. Apparently, the evasions and cover-ups over the funding of terrorist groups in Syria are starting to splinter apart. And apparently, there is evidence of Dutch and British funding for extremists who beheaded children and carried out ethnic cleansing. And the corporate media, including the BBC, is still trying to keep a lid on it. Apparently, there are more protests in Iraq's Kurdish north, and Kurdish authorities are struggling to quash these wildcat protests as frustration at delayed public sector payments and decades of mismanagement have boiled over into street violence. Happening all over the place here. Up in Afghanistan, the government is claiming that they've killed 63 Taliban in a failed offensive against Kandahar. And Kandahar is the most important province for the Taliban as the homeland of the group's ideological leadership. And it was Afghanistan's capital before the U.S. invasion and occupation. So the fighting is still going on there. 20 years. We've been stuck in that quagmire, all for a pipeline. over in Yemen, the separatists, the STC separatists, are moving out of Aden, the interim capital of the government-controlled part of the country, as part of a power-sharing deal. And before the deal, government and STC fighters fought over territory across South Yemen, and now the STC fighters will be sent toward the front line in the Dale province to fight the Houthis. So things are changing over there. You're not sure which side you're on from one day to the next here. Keeping their promise, following the normalization of relations between Sudan and Israel, the United States has formally removed Sudan from the list of state sponsors of terror after 27 years. And they're now saying that parts of the Western Sahara now are Sudanese territory as well. So definitely a high price to pay, but that's basically the way Trump was trying to do these things. Apparently, 25 were killed as ISIS fights troops in the Syrian desert. And ISIS has been conducting a growing number of attacks, particularly in the deserts, as they try to inflict meaningful casualties on the government forces. Okay. Over in the International Criminal Court, last Friday, a prosecutor called for a full investigation into a broad range of war crimes committed in Ukraine since 2014. Now, apparently, there was a 6-year probe into the allegations of war crimes during the pro-European Union protests back in 2013, 2014. They're still claiming Russia annexed Crimea, which is a flat-out lie, and the conflict in eastern Ukraine. But the ICC is going to take a look on that one. Meanwhile, and you're going to love this one, you know, as the snow swirls down outside the window here, John Kerry's think tank is calling for a war with Russia. Now, what do you think the reason for the war is? Is it economic? Well, in reality, yes. You know, is it territory? Is it geopolitics? Probably all of those. But according to John Kerry, the real reason we should all send our money to the government, to the Pentagon, and the real reason we should have our children risk life and limb is climate change. And apparently, John Kerry is the special presidential envoy for climate. And he wants to deal with the issue of global warming as a national security concern. And John, I need to tell you something. There is nothing that warms up the environment more than those big guns and missiles going off all over the place. You might want to think this one through a little more carefully before you act on this. Meanwhile, Trump is tweeting that he is going to veto the National Defense Authorization Act because the biggest winner would be China. Now, I know a couple of sticking points for him is the continued removal of Confederate names from military bases, Confederate statues, and of course, Section 230 of the Telecommunications Act. Unfortunately, it does look like Congress has a veto-proof majority because this is money for the war, and money for the war always passes the Congress, and that's why they put so many riders on it. Okay, so the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley, basically looked at the $740 billion with a B defense budget. And he said that, you know, the Defense Department has to take a hard look at what we do, where we do it. And he's saying the U.S. should reevaluate its military commitments, and he is absolutely right. The United States has got military bases all over the world, something like 700, I think, you know, in places that are not a threat to this country. And it is, you know, bankrupting the nation. That's what happened to the former Soviet Union. You know, they fell for the Star Wars defense. They shoveled more of their national economy into weapons building, and they bankrupted the place. Now, Mike Pence is expected to visit Israel in January, just a week before the inauguration. There's no word on the purpose of the visit. but people are wondering, what the heck is going on. Meanwhile, over in Russia, they have carried out a successful test of their Zircon missile. This is an anti-ship missile. It flies at 8 times the speed of sound. And it's being described as a game changer that could radically shift the naval balance of power. It could turn our much vaunted aircraft carriers into target ships. Okay, now let's get into the economic news. According to dailyposter.com, the latest incarnation of the stimulus bill offered by the Republicans to placate the Democrats, it bails out defense contractors but denies direct payments to families. Now, earlier this year, Republican senators slammed the idea of spending money to pay Americans not to work during the pandemic. Well, if you think about it, it was our money to begin with. So let's be a little bit honest about that here. But apparently they want to go ahead and do payments to defense contractors, even though with all the pending wars, the defense contractors are making out like bandits right now. Now, we have been talking about all the companies and all the billionaires that are deserting California. And I think there's a lesson there that when you let Democrats run your state, it will get run into the ground, and all the major money-making, job-creating corporations are basically going to seek greener pastures. Now, a lot of people, a lot of companies are moving to Austin, Texas, and apparently Larry Ellison, Oracle co-founder and billionaire, has decided he wants to move out of California to Hawaii. Now, Hawaii's a beautiful place. But Larry, if you or any of your minions are listening to this show, the taxes there are pretty high. The cost of living is pretty high. I know you're a billionaire. You don't worry about these things. But it is another liberal-run state with all that implies. Okay. Now, a lot of people have been talking about the rent freeze about to expire at a couple of weeks now. And apparently Mnuchin is out there lobbying for more bailouts for Wall Street. Now, this kind of raises question marks over my head. You can't see them on this video feed. Because, Wall Street keeps saying they're doing great. You look at the stock market, it's going up and up and up, and everybody says happy times are here right now. Well, apparently that's not what's really going on in the background, because Mnuchin wants bailouts for Wall Street. Okay, and there's something very weird about that. The other issue that we need to look at is the block on evictions is set to expire at the end of the year too, and they're estimating something like 40 million Americans could face eviction. And what's sick is years ago I predicted this was going to happen, where we would have millions of homeless people living on the streets in front of boarded up houses as far as the eye could see. And we're heading there. We're definitely heading there. 48% of U.S. small businesses fear they may be forced to shut down permanently in the very, very near future. Okay, we're going to take another break for commercials, I think. And there's the music. I'll be right back. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go ahead and open up the phone lines now. Area code 512-248-8252. And let's talk about the economy for a little while. There's an article that came out of Investment Watch blog, and it's expressing concern that because of the ease of trading on your smartphone, that more and more people are getting involved in day trading, and they're speculating in stocks, and they may lack the connections and the expertise to choose widely, and they may be creating a bubble that is going to pop at some point in the future. And this may be a factor in the fact that even though Mnuchin is arguing for bailouts for Wall Street, that the stock market continues to go up. Okay, now getting on back to John Kerry and his concern that we have to attack Russia to stop human-caused global warming. Apparently, natural gas futures are up, hitting a one-week high because current weather models are suggesting that while winter was a little late in arriving, it's going to be a bad one. And certainly that's the forecast we're getting around here. Right now, New England is just getting hammered with all kinds of snow. So the natural gas futures are up because people want to keep their homes a little bit warmer. All righty. Now, work on the Nordstream 2 pipeline has started again, despite the efforts by the United States to stop it. And the move to complete the final section will stretch already fraught diplomatic relations with the U.S. As the U.S. gets ready to tighten more sanctions on Russia. And, you know, this is economic warfare is really what it is here. Okay, a little bit of good news for the victims of Bernie Madoff. Remember Bernie Madoff with the loot? Apparently, the Department of Justice has announced that Bernie's victims will get another $488 million in recovered funds. And the cash will go to the nearly 37,000 victims around the world who were taken in by Bernie Madoff here. And apparently at this point, almost everybody, they've recovered about 80% of their losses. So a little bit of good news there. All right. Getting into political correctness and everything. This is an article that came out of Blabberbuzz, and it's an editorial. And apparently the transgender community is still out there pushing a hardline agenda. And apparently there's this transgender activist who is calling for all children born in America to be put on puberty blockers from birth onward until they can make a, quote, informed decision on their gender, end quote. Well, kiddies, just, you know, pull out the front of your pants or skirt and take a look down, and that's your gender, okay? But, I mean, this is how scary it's getting. Okay, we got to take a break for station identification. Phone lines are open. We'll be right back. Back to the show here, hour number 2. The phone lines are open, area code 512-248-8252, and we're going to go to Mark in North Carolina. Mark, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, how you doing, Mike?
Doing
Mike, I heard that thing before. Hey, you hear me?
Yes, you're on the air.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, Mike, I heard that thing before, what you said with John Kerry.
Yeah.
This is the problem. I always say when people say, well, China's going to invade the United States or Russia's going to invade the United States, no country is crazy, has crazy enough leaders to think that they can invade this country. Not only that we have 7,000 nukes and they would leave the delivery, but we also have a heavily armed civilian population that I believe will, will make these globalists think before they really try to confiscate our firearms. But
yes,
when you look at war with Russia, first of all, a war with Russia on the European continent, we'd have about as much chance with the military we have now that's so demoralized and, they're having trouble getting people. We'd have about as much chance as if I stepped into the ring with Mike Tyson, okay?
Yep.
I'd have about as much chance as our military would have against Russia on the European continent. And that includes all of NATO, too, okay? They would mop the floor with us. I wouldn't want to see it. It would be horrible because we would have terrible casualties. But the thing is this, it wouldn't just stay like this, because when you have two nations with about 7,000 nuclear weapons and the means of delivery at their disposal, sooner or later those nukes are going to start firing. And talk about climate change. Well,
yes.
John, you're really going to see climate change then, won't you? What is it, 10,000 degrees above Fahrenheit or something like that, and nuclear explosion, and probably the end of the planet. These people, but you know what bothers me, Mike, is we got probably some of the craziest leaders, both in the United States, Britain, Germany, France. These people, a lot of them, I believe, are on drugs, probably antipsychotic medication, and they are, and they have this crazy globalist ideas, and they are just crazy enough that they might try something. Russia today is what the United States used to be. They are a Christian nation.
Yep.
They're actually a religious nation too. They're Christian and Muslim, and they're very patriotic and very loyal, and they love their nation. They love their country, and they have the values that we once had. Okay, and that's why the globalists hate them so much, because they know the two biggest threats to the globalists are Russia and the people of this country, not the leadership of this country, the people of this, middle America, the people that I said, like over 400 million firearms in the hands of private citizens in this country.
Yeah, and that number's going up rapidly.
Yeah, over 100 million armed citizens. But like I said, these madmen, if Biden gets in, he's just crazy enough, and he's got people under him that are crazy enough to really think they might be able to take the weapons away from the American citizens, as well as forcibly give us vaccines. And they'll get a civil war they won't believe. I mean, they will, again, the military is not going to get involved. They're, unless they turn against the government, which they might do,
Yes.
They're not going to turn on the American people. The police would be massacred. They would have no chance. That's the police that would be on the globalist side. The ones like constitutional sheriffs would be on the side of the people and would be part of the militia, because they would form the posses that would be needed. Like a county sheriff can probably, I think he can deputize every citizen in the county if he needs to. So, they don't know what they're asking for. These people are so crazy, they're so sick, they're on psychotic drugs. And then you got psychopaths like Bill Gates, who I can't believe, the kind of power the guy got. I was watching some picture, I think it was the Duran or something like that.
Okay.
It was showing films of him being interviewed by Jake Tapper there at the Criminal News Network. And if you look at the guy even looks crazy. I mean, he looks like he may suffer from autism or something like that. He's got that nasty little smirk in his face. Yeah. Every time he talks about the COVID, he gives this big smile, this big smirk, and this big smile, and he waves his hand around. I think the guy really is, has something seriously wrong with him. He's just a lousy poker player. Huh?
He's a lousy poker player.
He's also not very smart. I understand he didn't really start his company. He didn't really get his company going. He basically stole, it's mostly stolen money. He was kind of given it by his parents had something to do with it. His parents are related to the Rockefellers, And so the guy's not even that good of a businessman. But yet he's got all this influence. Like this fool Boris Johnson, who I believe is also on heavy-duty psychotic meds, saying she's going to make him his assistant or something like that. This is a problem in the West. We really, the EU. These are enemies of the human race today. They're worse than the Soviet Union ever was. And if Biden gets in there, we're going to be part of it.
Yep.
I still think he's going to be stopped one way or another. I think I really don't believe, though I can't say for sure. Trump may just show weakness and give in. But I think from what I can tell, what I see the movements around is the people around Trump. We are going to see some kind of an insurrection act. Well, I don't think they're ready to surrender this country to these people. I get the feeling just having Flynn around, General Flynn, and the new Defense Secretary Miller, and the fact that he got rid of Barr finally, I think it sends signals that he's going to do something at the end, if nothing else works. And other things might work. The electors at some point, this is very disputed what happened yesterday about the Electoral College. It seems to be like two sets of electors. some of these
Yes.
battleground states. So we might see something there. But I think at the last resort, he is going to pull that Insurrection Act. And you know what? I'm all for it. Because, no, I'm not a big fan of Trump. He's all we got right now. Okay?
Yes.
You know, I would have loved Tulsi Gabbard as president. I wish she would have done a lot better. She would
No,
have done better,
they showed her the door real quick.
Yeah, she was. You know, she makes a lot of sense, and she would have been the best. But what are you going to do? You got to go with what you got. And Trump is about the best we right now, because Biden is a disaster. Harris is also a disaster. I also think they might approach Biden with an indictment to say, look, you resign right now, or you withdraw from the president, from any claim of the presidency right now. Mike Adams is saying that, or we're going to indict you, and we're going to prosecute you, and you're going to go to prison, and your son's going to go to prison. He might withdraw on that and even concede, because if he gets out, if he leaves now, that doesn't automatically make Harris the president, because she's not vice president. Only when she's vice president would she have to claim to the presidency. One day after Biden is, God forbid, sworn in, like on the 20th and the 21st, Biden leaves, resigns, or whatever else, that would make Harris the president.
Yes.
But until then, I don't believe she would be president, or she would be president-elect, or anything else. This is not there's nothing final about this, and they've got a lot of evidence, evidently, now. And mainstream media is not showing it, but I follow the mainstream media. I follow a lot of other sites on the internet and all, and there seems to be a lot of evidence right now that...
yes, there is. Well, I'm hoping that the new acting attorney general... I'm hoping the new acting attorney general is going to be more of a cooperating with Trump rather than Barr, who obviously was, a gatekeeper and actively worked to keep all these scandals out of the public eye.
Well, I get the impression military intelligence is on this. And remember, Flynn used to be the head of the DIA, that's Defense Intelligence Agency.
Yes.
And he knew a lot of garbage about what was going on in, with us supporting Al-Qaeda and ISIS against Syria and against Libya. He knew all this stuff. And that's why they were so fearful of the man when he came in. I think somebody in the show yesterday was saying Flynn is part of no, he's not part of the problem. Flynn is not he's not a globalist. He's not a warmonger. All right? He's not part of the military-industrial complex the way people think. He really means, he meant well, and he would have been, I thought back in 2016, Trump should have selected him as the vice president, not Pence. So yes. I think Flynn is playing an important part right now in whatever is going to happen. I think he would have got a lot of good advice, and I think he's got his contacts within the military, especially within military intelligence. And I think we're going to see something very shortly, unless the electors change things around, or somehow it still does go to the Supreme Court. And what happened in Wisconsin yesterday is also a big thing, because
yes,
it's not an open shut Wisconsin now. That state might flip, and Georgia might still flip. Okay, so it's not over by any means. I don't care what that idiot Mitch McConnell says. The turkey, the turkey there. He looks like a turkey, doesn't he? I don't care what he says. I don't care what any of these people say. Okay. I don't think it's not over. Okay, not until that fat lady starts singing, and she hasn't started to sing yet.
Yep.
So that's pretty much all I got to say. Other than take off your mask, folks. Don't take the vaccine. Whatever you do, it's poison. They want to either kill you, sterilize you, make you sick. They don't want to help you with that thing. Not from a so-called virus that 99.9% of the people recover. By the way, undercover nurse Shapchesky, I think his last name is. She's got a Slavic last name, Aaron, but she looks Hispanic. But whatever the case is, she was in Alex Jones today, and he had an hour interview with. What a woman! What a great woman! She tells the truth. Okay. But anyway, that's it, Mike. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to Ryan in Cleveland. Hello, Ryan. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, but you remember the other day they said about that F-16 fighter jet crashing in Michigan?
Yes.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering about that, and I was listening to this guy on YouTube. I'm subscription to him. He goes around the country interviewing homeless people, and he's from Michigan and used to do it mostly in Detroit and Southwest side. But he was up in upstate Michigan and the Lower Peninsula, but we'll say the north, central, eastern part, closer to Lake Huron. Yep. He's in the city called West Branch today. I was listening to him. He's like, oh, it's beautiful over here. Look at that lake. Yeah. He goes, I find it unusual. There's so much military movement going on. I wonder why that is. And then he went back to all this other stuff, which makes me think there is something going up there in Michigan, because this was just something he just said out of the blue. Am I just like, what do you think? Is there maybe something to it, or you think I'm just like?
Well, the military is always conducting drills and exercises here, and I'm not seeing anything. But of course, if think 7 days in May. No, not 7 days in May. The movie about the attempted coup against the president was actually based on a real story. When the bankers wanted to depose Roosevelt and put in a Mussolini-style government, I can imagine were something like that to happen, it probably would be very hard to find out about it ahead of it actually happening, certainly at our consumer level, if you will. But it's certainly possible, it's possible that Trump has the rank-and-file military on his side, and that he's going to need them if he starts prosecuting people under the Insurrection Act. Most of the military people, in fact, I would say pretty much all the military people I've known, tend to be strict constitutionalists. Now, I'm not in favor of a military takeover of this country, but at this point, something's got to change to get us back on the track of a constitutional republic. And certainly we're headed in a disastrous direction under Biden and Harris.
Yeah, just so you know, this town is called West Branch, Michigan. It's only a town of about 2,000 people. So I started looking at their military bases close to there. Not to say there isn't, but I was looking up military bases in Michigan, and I didn't find any military base near there. So I'm just saying, I'm just throwing that out for people to kind of check out. Just, a lot of times you find things just on a whim like that possibly. But with that, I guess I'll let you go. Thanks, Mike.
All right, thanks an awful lot. And we're going to switch over to Al in Canada. Hello, Al. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. Your first caller is Mark, right?
Yes.
Yeah. He says something I don't quite agree with. I don't think there's any country that's strong enough to just waltz into the USA and take them over. There are too many people armed to the teeth.
Yes.
But there are a lot of rich people, and they're powerful enough to incrementally overthrow the United States through propaganda and
well, they're doing it already.
Education,
working like it for decades.
Oh yeah, it's right out in the open now. So I had sent you an email, and what it was is a little chart, because you earlier said that the United States could be bankrupt over certain things. The United States is bankrupt.
Yes.
It went bankrupt in 1933. And when Roosevelt bailed out the Federal Reserve by devaluing the U.S. dollar by, what was it, 67%. I'm not a lawyer. I'm certainly not an economist. I'm not a social, one of these social science kind of people, which economics is, because it's not based in fact. It's based in belief. It's not, 1 + 1 = 2. It's
banking is a religion.
Belief.
Yeah.
Yes, it is exactly. It's religion to a T. and it's a joke to think that it's otherwise. But this little graph shows you, and just in Canada, I mean, if the United States was bankrupt in 1933, there's no way that we're not bankrupt right now, because the spending up here has been just stupid. With paying people to stay home, this is a social experiment, like on steroids here. And all that's going to happen is you're going to end up with people up in this country I'm in right now that are just lazy, and they won't want to work. And here's the funny part, Mike. When this pandemic hit, would you believe? Would you believe?
Okay.
That the wealth of I don't know what class they call it, but has gone up 11%.
Yes, the rich definitely got richer.
Country. I don't mean the rich people. I mean even the poorer people, because of this CERB that everyone cashed in on. Even people that weren't eligible actually cashed in on this thing. So it just goes to show you how inept this government is.
Yes.
In this country. It doesn't surprise me 10 times as big and as expensive as yours is, how inept it is. The swamp is huge. Bill Barr, as you said, was a gatekeeper. He has a long history working with the government. People that have histories working in the government should never be allowed to step anywhere near it ever again for as long as they live. And their children?
I agree. Well, my observation I made to Claire the other day is, organized crime may be great at crime, but they're terrible at running a country.
Bingo. That's it right there. I've been saying that for years. Organized crime, they went into politics.
Yes.
They're the crooks. And we're seeing it.
It happened during Prohibition.
Oh, my God. Well, and look at where that money went, right?
Yes.
It got Kennedy. Elected.
Yes.
Now, history has proven that Kennedy was actually a really good president at some point. He grew a conscience or something.
Well, the White House can do that to some people. I think that's what happened to Vince Foster. Anyway, Al, I got to put you on hold. We got to take a break for commercial.
You're going to put me on hold?
I'm putting you on hold, and we're going to come right back to you after these few words. And welcome back to our show here. We're talking with Al in Canada. And Al, the Kennedy story, the Kennedy family officially denies it. But Joe Kennedy, started Prohibition as your basic middle-class shopkeeper. And when Prohibition ended, he was an extraordinarily wealthy man. And he did see getting his kids into politics. Of course, John F. Kennedy, was, a very wild child when he was young. He was a womanizer. And Joe Kennedy got him put into the Navy and sent to the South Pacific just to get him away from all the young females in Washington, D.C., which led to the PT-109 incident, which made John Kennedy a hero and helped launch his political career. But if you look at the history of Prohibition in total, that was when organized crime had enough money to skew the entire political system of the United States into its own purposes. And it wasn't until Prohibition ended that we started getting back to the constitutional republic. And unfortunately, the same thing has happened with drug prohibition. And the drug lords have got fabulous amounts of money with which to skew the nation to their benefit. And, it seems like history may not repeat, but it's definitely rhyming.
Oh, it's definitely rhyming. And the sad part is there are people that are young enough in the United States who have a really crummy education. They might have even paid hundreds of $1,000s for. They're ill-informed. They're ignorant. They have no critical thinking skills, but they think that they're right.
Yes.
Somehow they think that. I see that all the time in this country too, Mike. And when did we get so pompous? We're right at that last level here.
Well, when I was a kid, a college education actually meant something, both in terms of your knowledge and thinking and your earning potential. These days, a college degree is a fashion accessory. And it's sold at a very, very high cost, and people who've got that fashion accessory think they're automatically superior. But then, we can see this constant parade of college-educated morons trying to shape public policy.
Yeah, and one of the policies they want to shape is writing off the debt.
Yes.
who's going to, Mike, let's get back to that little chart, right?
Yeah, I just posted that to what really happened.
It was Canada.
Yeah.
Canada, Japan, and the United States, and UK was in there. So if all of these things that these people that have been quote-unquote elected want to do is actually tallied up in dollars and cents, the United States is going to, literally lose reserve currency overnight. And it's going to happen through devaluation. Because the Canadian dollar right now is about 78 cents.
Yes.
It hasn't been this high in years. And people think that, how can it be? Our debt is skyrocketing. You know what I mean? People actually think that when they see something, Canada's doing, no, we're not doing great. The United States is losing confidence all around the world in its ability to obligate all of its responsibilities under being the world's reserve currency. That's what we're seeing here. It's right in the value of the dollar, what it actually represents all over the world. People, keep that in mind. The world is not the United States. And on that note, Mike, you have a good show. I'll be listening in. Hey, guys, come on, phone in. Donate. It's Christmas.
Oh, well, we've got a lot of callers waiting on the line right now, Al. Thank you very much for the call. And we're going to go to Tom in Florida. And, Tom, I'm probably going to have to take you through the next commercial break. What's on your mind?
Yeah, Mike. Good aloha. Good day to you. Mike, I'm going to get to Mark in a minute, the first call. But, yeah, Mike, what's on my mind is what's going on in Michigan. I remember a week after the election I had called you, and I told you the linchpin for Trump to actually win this election was Michigan because John James got gypped out, and he was a black guy. If you look at the map of Michigan, Mike, Donald Trump won almost, every county except Detroit County. Clay County, I believe it is. And they stole this. Mike, it was stolen. And getting back to what Mark was saying, Mark's saying the Resurrection Act, the only Resurrection Act is probably going to work.
Insurrection.
People see a week before Insurrection Act, the only way it's going to work, Mike, is the mere fact that Biden's already said, and they're already massing at the border, hundreds of thousands of illegal aliens. Until 1 or 2 million, 3 million Americans go to Washington, demand that Biden be arrested for allowing this invasion and incursion of our country to take away our cultural identity. That's the only way. That's the only way this thing's going to work. When you have over 1 million men in arms going into Washington or pitchforks, I don't care what it is, and you say, hey, no, you're not going to allow these people. These people are not coming in here, so you to flood it more fraud, more illegal votes. No way. This is where it's got to. This is where the asphalt's got to be. The gasoline's got to tell the asphalt what's going on. Okay.
Okay.
We
well,
cannot allow this, Mike.
All right, Tom, stay on the line.
Okay.
All right, hang on. We'll be right back. Our show here, we're talking with Tom in Florida. And Tom, the idea of 1 million armed citizens marching on Washington, D.C. is precisely why Biden and Harris want to take away our guns, specifically the assault rifles, which would be an appropriate weapon for that. And I'm afraid that marching 1 million people into Washington to get them to change a policy and then turning around and walking away is only going to intensify the efforts to insulate Washington, D.C. from the will of we the people. And again, I don't want to see a revolution or a civil war in the streets of this country, but if one happens, it's going to have to be an all or nothing situation. To go in and clean out the government and start a whole new government under a whole new set of rules, go back to the Constitution, the first 13 amendments, and just take it from there.
Well, yeah, Michael, in your first hour, you said January, you might have millions of people homeless. You have American citizens maybe going to get kicked out because they can't pay their rent. But here in the meantime, you got bumbling Biden and Camilla communists want to bring in multiple millions or more illegal aliens from the third world.
Yes.
Okay, Mike? So, yeah, there's the only narrative we have is, and I listened to your first hour of the news broadcast, and you're right. We can't allow this. This cannot be allowed. The Democrats want more votes. They want to bring all these illegals to keep voting Democrat. Let's not kid ourselves. And the Mark's point too, he talked about Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi tore up Kamala Harris in the debate. However, she got picked as a nominee. Tulsi Gabbard was told to stand in the corner, put a dunce cap on, and shut up. and Tulsi Gabbard, okay, she should have ran as an independent. Trump should have paid her $10 million. He would have won because this Jorgensen creep, and I believe Trump did win the election in the popular vote and every other thing, but he ripped it off. And I believe that Camilla should have been vetted more as far as they should have really went after her, okay?
Yeah.
And what happened here, what Mark's saying is that, oh, yeah, Tulsi wouldn't have done nothing except maybe run as an independent and siphon votes away from bumbling Biden, and Trump would have won a much easier landslide. Now, getting back to Michigan,
let me give you a little lesson from history as to why Kamala Harris may have been Biden's pick. Back when Richard Nixon was facing the Watergate scandal, they ginned up this excuse to get rid of Spiro T. Agnew, and Nixon chose Gerald Ford to be vice president. And the reason he did that is the big, deep, dark secret at the heart of Watergate was Nixon's involvement in the assassination of John F. Kennedy. And Gerald Ford had served on the Warren Commission and could be counted on to maintain the cover-up, which, you know, had it all ripped open that the government was behind the assassination of Kennedy, would have delegitimized the government in the eyes of the American people. So I think, you know, we reported yesterday, this story coming on out, that Kamala Harris is apparently tangled up in some of these Biden corruptions. So I think Biden picked her to be VP in case he was forced to step down for either medical or legal reasons. He could count on her to make sure the cover-ups stayed in place.
I agree with that, Mike. And, you know, her husband's a big-time schmuck. You know, Camilla's been with multiple men, but I don't want to go there. What I want to talk about right now is this. The Miami Herald reported all these New York rich New Yorkers, these super rich people in New York, they're all moving to Florida.
Yes.
I don't know if you heard about that.
Yes,
they're
I did.
Moving down here because they're tired of the tax crap. So they're all going to move over here and try to destroy the state with their filthy money like that stinking Bloomberg and all these other schmucks, putzes. And, you know, Mike, here's the problem. Immigration is the number one issue that Trump should have hammered home. And I told you, Mike, and I'm going to tell all your listeners, the only way Trump maybe can pull this thing off is right now what Mark said, bringing they have to use a Resurrection Act. And he's got to literally say, I'm going to arrest all the governors. Okay, Insurrection Act. I'm going to arrest all the governors. I'm going to arrest all these people that allowed Sanctuary City. That's the only play he's got with the multiple masses of people. That's the only way he's got to he can get the masses on his side to say, yeah, this was a fraud. They brought bumbling Biden in there. He wants to bring in multiple millions of illegal aliens to really destroy his country. And in the meantime, you got American citizens are going to be homeless like crazy. Multiple millions of people are going to be living like they are in Anaheim, California, in Orange County. I mean, the whole state of California is becoming a homeless base for homelessness and insanity. So, my opinion is this is going to lead to an all-out civil war. I really believe that. If bumbling Biden and Camilla Connie get in there, I think we're going to be in an all-out civil war because we cannot absorb multiple millions of more illegals coming in here. And now we're not even talking about the anchor babies from China and all these other countries are bringing all their anchor babies. And all these Africans are bringing into the northeastern states, Maine and Minnesota, in the northern states. Let's put it that way. So I think this is absurd, and I think that's Trump's only play. Mike is he's going to have to say, you know what, I should have enforced this law 4 years ago when he became president. No sanctuary cities. You break the law, you're breaking the law, and you're going to be arrested. That's the only play he's really got, in my opinion. I don't see maybe another play other than what happened to Michigan. I told you, Michigan was the key for Trump to turn this thing around with John James, because, Mike, they're Afro-Americans in Detroit. I don't give a darn. When anybody says, I don't care who's listening, those blacks would have still voted for John James because he would have been a black senator from the state of Michigan, which they never had. And I don't believe the other guy beat John James the way he did. Because I remember at 2 o'clock in the morning, John James was still winning by 82,000 votes. And by 4 o'clock in the morning, he's losing by 100,000 votes. It was unbelievable what I saw. And then we were hearing about the water break in Atlanta. Oh, the whole place is flooded. And it was just a little toilet, not a little couple drops of water on the floor. I mean, this whole thing's been a big ploy. And the only play that Trump's got right now is as a president, commander-in-chief, okay, he has got to start arresting these governors, these mayors, and everybody else associated with these sanctuary cities. Otherwise, Mike, we got Joe Biden January 20th. That's all there's to it. And then the only way you're going to be able to take this government over is by force through the American people saying enough is enough. We're not going to allow multiple millions more illegals to come in here, get better health care, better Section 8 housing, and homeless people are living in their cars. And
Okay,
that's
well,
exactly the boy's got to.
Tom, I understand your focus on the illegal immigrants. You know, you hammer that point pretty much every time that you call on in. I disagree.
That's right.
It was the most important issue for Trump to look at. Trump should have cleaned up the election system after all the election fraud in 2016, and he failed to do it, and he's paying the price for it right now.
Mike, I totally agree with you, and I've always said that. I've always said, since I've been calling your show, that was the biggest thing that was going to happen. They're going to try to steal election because of voter fraud, and they did.
Yep.
And look at what's going on right now in Michigan. That was the linchpin that Trump should have really hammered with all of his team and all that to get Michigan turned, or at least thrown out, that state thrown out. And the rest of them would have fell like dominoes. You would have had Arizona dropping out and Nevada. But he went about it the wrong way, I believe, because now it's looking like all the media, this whole media cabal is totally after Trump. They've been after him since day one. As a matter of fact, before when he's coming down the escalator, they were after him. When he brought up the thing about illegal aliens and all that. I mean, they after Trump the day he came down that escalator with Melania. Let's not kid ourselves. And you know what? There's never going to be another Donald Trump if he leaves this office, because I don't believe even the next Republican will have any half the huevos or balls that Trump had as far as some things. Now, was he strong enough? No, Mike. We're never going to have a guy like an Andrew Jackson or nothing like that.
Well, unfortunately, if the Democrats get away with stealing this election, which is unfortunately looking more and more likely, they're just going to keep on doing it. We're headed toward being a one-party nation like the former Soviet Union.
Well, Mike, the only answer then is where American people go up en masse, and they march on Washington and they demand that they be taken care of first, last, and always. No more illegal immigration. Have a moratorium on immigration for 10 years. Nobody comes in our country. We don't need all these people that have those technical skills from India and all that. For what?
Tom, you weren't listening.
All that and take care of our own right now.
Tom, you weren't listening to me before. If 1 million people march into Washington, D.C., it's going to be an all or nothing deal. If you don't force the government out, the government will retaliate when everybody goes back home. Anyway, Tom, I got to let you go here. The phone lines are loaded up. We're getting close to the end of the program, and we're going to switch over to Paul in New Jersey. Hello, Paul. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Michael. Michael, I want to talk about, I've seen among the right, like the Alex Joneses and let's say Tom in Florida, a lot of these fellas are coming out criticizing China's takeover, the power of China. They're all, they're very xenophobic. And so, I think for one, you're seeing a bunch of white guys who are basically coming to the rescue of Asian people and want to make sure that Chinese are better because we want to topple the government because they're communists. But yet we have to remember, they were doing great because of communism, because of the past 30 years of the Communist Party rule. They went from a backwards agricultural power into an industrial superpower. So that's
you have to give them credit for that.
So that shows actually that their government's a success.
Yes.
So it's kind of like and meanwhile, in capitalist America, we are replacing the indigenous white people and just totally displacing them and making them into a minority because of capitalism. So
the white people aren't indigenous to America. That would go, to the Native Americans. But yes, I mean, this was a very Eurocentric population that built this country. And it does look like as part of bringing this globalist vision into play, that the third world is being imported into the United States of America to displace white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, the way, they tried to do in Zimbabwe and South Africa.
So in a sense, I wish our country, the past 40 years with our democracy, was run as well as what the Chinese communists have done in the past 40 years.
You make a good point.
Because look what they've done for their country.
That's why they're being presented to us. That's why they're being presented to us as a threat. The United States has lost most of its manufacturing. China's a manufacturing powerhouse. Go to any big box store and look at how many of the products on those shelves are made in China. And that's how you, make money, is you make a product to sell. Wall Street, however, has got this idea that if they take money and just shake it back and forth hard enough, it's going to multiply all by itself by magic. And that just really does not work. And right now, the United States, in terms of manufacturing capability, is definitely behind China. Rather than try and actually revive America's manufacturing and economy, the easy route is to declare war on our competition and blow them off the face of the earth, which was the reason Germany was targeted in big mistake number 1 and big mistake number 2.
You know, another point I'd like to address is many of these people claim that the Chinese people are being oppressed. Now, every year, about 3 million Chinese people come back and forth and fly between China and the United States.
Yes.
And so that if all those people, none are seeking asylum, none are running to try to get absolute instant citizen, actually many of them fly back to visit their families on a regular basis.
Yes.
And so how can you say that China is a closed society or it's, persecuting all their population? Obviously, at a 1.4.
No, it doesn't work. Now, a while back, some years ago, I took Claire to the World Choral Olympics, which was held in Cincinnati. It's held all over the world every few years. And there were several choirs from China. And first of all, they were amazing. They were all wandering around when they weren't performing, and we got a chance to talk to them, and a lot of them spoke English. They seemed very happy with their lives.
Exactly. I've been to China, and I thought the same thing. They seem relatively happy, although they have tough standards of living, and they have to work. So.
I think having to work, I'm a person who needs to work. Retirement is a dirty word here. I haven't been to China. I would like to visit it someday. My father is from Shanghai, was from Shanghai. He's passed away. And I'd kind of like to see, what's around there. If I have any distant relatives over there and so forth. Wouldn't mind seeing the Terracotta Army in person. And the Tomb of the Dragon Emperor and the Great Wall and the rest of it. It's actually on my bucket list.
Yeah. Now, listen, one other point I'd like to make is if you look on any lists about, countries with their repression and China's not on any of those lists. That's North Korea, Syria, Turkmenistan, Saudi Arabia, who we're friends with. Equatorial Guinea, Uzbekistan. Okay, those are the ones that oppress their citizens. Then, of course, there's a bunch of refugees. Notice the refugees aren't coming from China. The refugees are coming from the countries America meddled in, like Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, right, Libya. That's where the refugees are coming from, see? And that was created by American foreign policy. So we have the audacity to blame the Chinese for global destruction. It's ridiculous. And that's what I want to address. We have to be self-conscious.
Hello, Paul. We seem to have lost Paul. All righty, so let's switch over to Miles in Maine. And Miles, I may have to take you through the commercial break. What's on your mind?
Aloha, Michael. Yeah, I think it's kind of ironic that there's some of these people that called in and have bashed Trump, yet they're saying they support Tulsi Gabbard. And they complain about Trump and immigration and all this, but you support someone who wants open borders, anti-gun, CFR member. That's your choice over Trump. I mean, this is just hysterical. Some of the stuff I hear. And Trump has obviously had effect against him from the very inception of his election. And I think he's doing well with, everything he's had facing. So, I don't think there's anybody that could be doing a better job than Trump that is electable that we've seen. I mean, you're going to get to see, I hope we're not going to get to see Biden, but if Biden should happen to, come into play here. I want to see these people. I want to see how much Tulsi Gabbard opposes Biden, because you're not going to see it. I'm predicting that right now. And you know, I like Tom's enthusiasm, but I agree with you, Michael. That's not the thing to do. I mean, you could have 200,000 people out there with pitchforks or whatever you want. They don't care. They're not responding to it. You know what I'm saying, Michael?
No, once the election system is
so it doesn't matter
compromised.
if you march up there, if you run up there and send them postcards. It doesn't matter. We've been doing this for years now. We've already played this futility. But they understand, and the only things I've seen they understand is when whatever happens to McConnell and his hands bruised. They understand Roberts with his bump head.
Okay, Miles, I got to let you go. We got to take a commercial break, and I got callers waiting in our final segment. Welcome back to our show here, last segment of our program today, and we're going to go back to the phones to Marco in Alabama. Hello, Marco. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Michael. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing great. It's evening here.
All right. First and foremost, I gotta say, dude, that I love my dude from Florida. You know, you're calling it. You know, but it's just unfortunate, dude, that Americans are just too asleep, man. And to that commie twinkle-toed beef smoker that just called in trying to sit here and prop up communism, no way, dude. No, that's up. I'm sorry. I'm not hearing you, man. At this point, as long as this drags on, I hate to say this, you guys. I mean, I love Trump, don't get me wrong, but I hope that he loses. Because at this point, conservatives will never do nothing but continue to chase reprieves. Biden is going to flood the country. Communism is going to be implemented. But the great thing about this is that the Americans will be awake and they will not go back to sleep. Because honestly and truly, what's going to happen if Donald Trump wins? Conservatives are going to go back to sleep, dude. People are going to go back to sleep on human rights issues. And basically, I want to bury liberalism. I want to end social justice, man. I mean, I want to rub it in their faces. And if Biden wins and communism is implemented, the American people, they're going to be awake. They're never going back to sleep. These people will not be able to sit here and rule over us long. Americans will get desperate, and with desperation will come fortitude. These people will be exposed. The toothpaste will not be able to go back, dude, into the tube. These politicians are traitors. And I'm sorry, I don't know what the answer is to these people, man. But all I know is this, dude, just stop paying taxes, man. I mean, stop doing, all these things, dude, that they want in a productive society and live for yourselves. That's what I'm starting to go every day, man. You want to know what? I want to buy land. We have my own farm, so I don't have to interact with anybody. Anybody, dude, comes on my property line, dude, in Tennessee and Alabama and all that stuff, you have rights, dude. You can shoot these damn people, and it doesn't matter, dude, what they are and all that stuff, man. I want to live by myself. I want to live free from liberals, man. I want to live free from commies and all that stuff, man. But, honestly and truly, if we can't do anything, dude, about immigration, dude, that's the straw that broke the camel's back, dude, for Donald Trump as far as I'm concerned. Because in the grand scheme of things, when the immigrants that are coming here, they're being brainwashed by the UN while they're getting their gift cards to travel through country to country to get here, to line up on our Mexican border. They're just sitting there, being told, dude, to hate white people, dude, hate American life, do not assimilate or participate, dude, in American life. Transfer your country's ideals, your low trust country's ideals into our country, dude, and the American people won't do shit about it, dude. They'll just sit here and accept it.
Well,
and I'm done, man.
I understand your anger and your angst. I'm hearing so much of it. I'm reading so much of it in the emails. It's definitely, we're in a crisis situation here, and I'm afraid, all roads lead to darkness as far as I can tell right now. Anyway, there's the music. I got to let you go, Marco, and I apologize to the callers waiting online that I was not able to get to. Please call in tomorrow. Stay tuned for John Stedmiller. I'm sure he's got lots of interesting things to share with you. Please spread the word of Republic Broadcasting Network. Please spread the word of whatreallyhappened.com. Please donate. We'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.